Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. This is World Combat Sports. Welcome back to another episode of Muddy Flats MMA. And we're going to be previewing UFC Fight Night, hosting the main event, Dan Hooker versus Dustin Diamond Poirier. So, for those of you that's tuned in, man, appreciate you for stopping back through. Support the channel, hit the thumbs up button. If you choose to donate, you can do it in the live chat or via Cash App that's strolling across your screen later on. So first and foremost, this UFC fight card will be the last one at the Apex Center in Las Vegas prior to the UFC moving their fights to Fight Island, which is in Abu Dhabi, Yas Island, for a heavy fight card. They're going to have several fight cards over there on Yas Island, and you definitely need to stay tuned to that. So let me just go through the main event on down, to the preliminaries. If you look in the descriptions of the YouTube channel, and first of all, appreciate everybody who dropped their comments in. I was surprised. Dana Lund in the building. T. Mason said Team Platinum all day. We feel you over here. All right, we're gonna get back. We're gonna get back to Platinum Perry. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad to see people making their predictions already, man. One thing I can say wholeheartedly is that, Michael Perry definitely bring some entertainment to the cage every time he steps in there. So Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker, light heavyweights, contended at 155 pounds. Since it's in the middle of the pandemic, they're giving them an extra pound. All right. Weigh-ins made it official. Dan Hooker weighed in at 155.5 and Dustin Poirier 156 even. Mike Perry and Mickey Gall will be the co-main event. All right. And that's big. Even though, we are, jump starting these fight cards, it's big to be on the co-main event because for one, I'm guessing, you get a little bit more shine before the main event. Plus the paycheck is probably pretty decent. Next, the third fight. I'm just going down the list from the main event on down to the undercard. Brandon Allen versus Kyle Daukaus. Next, Maurice Greene versus Glenn Villante. A fight that I'm looking forward to. Luis Pena, very exciting fight. Follow him ever since he was in the Ultimate Fighter house. He's going in there against Khama. Next, Philipe Lins against Tanner Boser. Next, Sean Woodson versus Kyle Nelson. And Kay Hansen against Jinh Yu Frey. And the last fight, Jordan Griffin against Youssef Zalal. But the main fights I'm going to talk about, of course, is the primary co-main event and the main event. Mike Perry, Mickey Gall. If you don't know, now you know. Mike Perry said he's basically going to go to the cage. He's not going to have a corner. He's going to have his new girl, his new wife, I believe they married already. That's the only person he needs. Mike Perry is on one of those journeys that, a lot of people will say he's ostracizing himself. But, some people love rolling solo. I think it's good sometimes, to kind of dial it all in, find who you are, just kind of do away with the extra needed people. And sometimes for a man, that comfort is in a woman. You know what I'm saying? So right now in Mike Perry's career, he might be going through a lot of personal issues. I don't want to say demons because he's pretty much stuck to the script the entire time he's been in the fight game. He always give you that little you know, extra freaking flavor of hot sauce. You know what I'm saying? Mixed in with some alcohol. So whatever he's going through, man, he said he doesn't need a corner. He barely listens to them anyway. He's going to feel just fine going to the cage with just his wife, his new wife. All right. And only Mike Perry knows what that's about. You know what I'm saying? Only he knows, because he's going in there against a 6-2 fighter in Mickey Gall. If you don't remember Mickey Gall, when he was kind of making a name for himself, you know, he stepped in there with Mike Jackson, a brother that came out of nowhere. We was like, who the fuck is Mike Jackson? And then come to find out he did a little boxing, I guess. Pretty decent dude. But Mickey Gall washed him. All right. Like he should have. He washed him. He got him up out of there. So then came all the hoopla. You know what? You know, the UFC loved making stars out of individuals that's selling tickets. You know what I'm saying? So this is the era when CM Punk came over to the UFC. Everybody was boasting CM Punk up. You know, CM Punk is a very athletic human being. He's a superstar in the entertainment business of wrestling. You know what I'm saying? The WWE and jumping off the top rope, scalpels, you know, everything else that has to do with that, right? But then Dana White was really pushing this guy. He was really pushing CM Punk to come over here and make a name for himself. And when Mickey Gall got the call, I was like, hell yeah. Because Gall is not going to lay down for CM Punk. And you know what? He's going to go in there and put the paws on him. And knowing that Gall has pretty solid jiu-jitsu game, you know, his ground game is pretty solid. I knew right away he was going to submit CM Punk. I knew he wasn't going to play around. He was going to take it right down to the ground. So, you know, I just sat back and laughed how Dana White was, you know, giving all this promo to CM Punk. And, you know, him being in camp and everything and really buckling down and dedicating himself to learning mixed martial arts. And I said, I don't care. At this point in CM Punk's life, it doesn't matter how long he's on the mat. It doesn't matter who he trains with. He's only going to go so far, period. Because the game demands that a fighter start off, you know, with some type of martial arts and have some type of discipline. You know, whether it be boxing, Muay Thai, karate, taekwondo, any of those disciplines, you need it before you was in your 30s already. You just can't come over here and say, you know, I wrestle and now I want to transition over to mixed martial arts. I got all this money that Vince McMahon has been paying me. And now I want to come over to mixed martial arts. So the good thing about what Dana White did is put him in there with Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall is a solid, clean-cut fighter, but dangerous. And he went in there and subbed CM Punk in the first round. I say, yeah. Sealed him up and shipped him out, man. Just the way it's supposed to happen. That really shut down the rise of CM Punk. What was supposed to be a meteoric, you know, hope of CM Punk coming in the UFC and doing something special, Mickey Gall shut that shit down. Shut it all the way down. So the next in line, right? You know, Mickey Gall, he disperses CM Punk. And the next name on the docket is Sage Northcutt. Anybody know Sage Northcutt? Man, this kid, look, listen. Sage Northcutt probably, most likely has been doing martial arts since an early youth. I'm talking about since he can remember walking, right? And his pedigree and his accolades and trophies and medals, I mean, come on, man. It's too deep to kind of give you an understanding, but he has hundreds of freaking martial arts trophies, badges, and everything else from traveling the world and competing, right? So when you initially see, you know, when I initially seen Sage Northcutt, I'm saying to myself, he reminds me of a Paige Van Zandt. You know, I mean, they tough individuals. They look, you know, like they're in decent shape, but they're just lacking a little intricate piece to their mixed martial arts game, right? So when I found out Mickey Gall was being linked up to Sage Northcutt, I'm looking at Sage, you know how cut and chiseled dude is. He's in phenomenal shape, but he has a problem with his ground game. Once again, going back to Mickey Gall's ground game, I knew if Mickey was able to get Sage to the ground, it would be a wrap. And look, Sage Northcutt is a part of Team Alpha Male over there in Sacktown, right? He has Uriah Faber. He had the TJ Dillashaws, the Joseph Benavidez, the Danny Castillos. He had people in there that's pretty damn good at wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I'm not sure why Sage Northcutt never quite developed into having that takedown defense and improving his game. But when they told me he was stepping in there with Mickey Gall, I said he's about to take this L. Absolutely, he's about to do it. And I like Sage Northcutt. I like it. You know, even though he just got knocked out by Alexandra over there at one championship, I like the guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm surprised he's not in Hollywood doing something with movies and getting away from a sport. You know, I guess he want to stay in the sport and do something with it. It's in his blood. But really, you know, he can do well in Hollywood or some with a less intensive sport and make millions. But anyway, Mickey Gall went in there and subbed him out in the second round. Sage made it to the second round. Thank God for him. He made it out of the first round against Mickey Gall because CM Punk was subbed out in the first round. So therefore, I'm saying to myself, CM Punk is no Sage Northcutt. So Sage went in there and at least made it to the second round before Mickey Gall subbed him out with the RNC. So now you have a fight, one of the biggest fights of Mickey Gall's career right now, in my opinion. Because you look at Mike Perry, he's been in there with the likes of Paul Felder. I mean, a barn burner, a firefight, back and forth punishment between them two. He's been in there with Cowboy Cerrone, didn't fare too well with it, you know. Mike Perry has been in there with some individuals that I know he had to learn something. He's been in there with some top names. He had his losses, you know what I'm saying? And he had some pretty good wins. But what Mike Perry needs to do, stepping in there with the young hitter like Mickey Gall, he needs to make sure he maintains composure. Mike Perry has been known to go in there and just let it all hang. He love a war. You bloody Mike Perry up. He's somewhat like BJ Penn when he and Diego Sanchez, when they start to bleed, it just fuels them that much more. You know what I'm saying? They just love it. It's almost like they hydrate off that shit. So I haven't really seen Mickey Gall in a bloody all-out battle. You know what I'm saying? I haven't seen this kid in very deep adversity where he had to take his mindset and his mental psyche to a whole nother dark place that Mike Perry has no problem residing in on his everyday life. And I'm curious to see if Mike Perry can keep the fight going that long and do some punishment to Mickey Gall and to see how much heart Gall actually has, man. Because if we're going off toughness, I have to give the edge to the one who's been in there in some of the more tougher fights, and that's Mike Platinum Perry, hands down. He's been in some very tough fights. And then Mickey Gall, he's been in some fights that you can say, okay, that were decent fights, solid. Mike Perry, I just hope he's able to get in and land those strikes. I know he's probably been working on his takedown defense against Mickey Gall. I mean, you know, jiu-jitsu of Mickey Gall. He's did a couple of grappling matches. No big name grapplers. He beat Alaquinta in a grappling match, and he defeated another guy, but he has some grappling. Nowhere on the level of Damian Meyer, Gilbert Burns, or Herbert Burns, or Robert Drysdale, or Ruzamar for Harris, or Gordon Ryan, you know what I'm saying, Eddie Cummins, all these BJJ people, Andre Gavallo, Eddie Bravo, Renan Gracie, Horace Gracie. I mean, all those guys who have jiu-jitsu games, I think that just may be a problem when it comes down to it. That would be a denominator when it comes down to Mickey Gall taking down Michael Perry, because he's been subbed out already. We've seen Cowboy Cerrone sub him out. That's my only issue with Mike Perry not finishing the fight. Because once Mickey Gall get him on the ground, I'm not saying there's no defense there for Mike Perry, but I'm just saying Mickey Gall is pretty slick on his back. And if you saw how Cowboy Cerrone was able to sub out Mike Perry, then you would know what the fuck I'm talking about. The losses that Mickey Gall has faced, the one that's most memorable is Diego Sanchez, and he got stopped in round 2. All right. So you take the willpower of Diego the Nightmare Sanchez. You take a straight up savage like Sanchez, and he is absolutely nothing short of that. Future Hall of Famer. If you remember the fight with him and Clay Guida. If you take Diego Sanchez and how he is as a fighter, and you compare that to the stoppage of Mickey Gall, and kind of compare it to Mike Perry being somewhat similar to the intensity of Diego Sanchez to a point, all right? Because Mike Perry bring the pain. I'm not going to lie. Mike Perry bring the goddamn pain. Will Mickey Gall be able to handle the same type of energy that he had to step in there with Diego the Nightmare Sanchez? That's all I want to see. I really want to see if he's ready. They have a 3-round fight. They're going to be in a shorter cage, right? So how does a shorter cage, 25 foot vice 30, benefit this fight? Well, for a grappler, it provides you less real estate to be able to get in on those hips. Because the system of a guy who has solid takedown is to what? Apply and execute a takedown to successfully get the takedown. That is numero uno. Take it to the ground. It's very much simpler to immobilize your opponent if they're on the ground. It takes away all the kinetic energy of them being explosive on their feet. So if Mickey Gall is able to take Mike Perry down to the ground, I'm curious to see the strength of Mike Perry in his takedown defense. I'm curious to see his game in general on how he's going to counter. How is he going to ensure that he's not placed on his back early in the fight when both fighters are dry? Also, I want to see from Mickey Gall, how patient is he going to be in trying to get the takedown? I don't think he has better hands than Mike Perry. So, of course, he's going to try his luck a little bit, keep it standing, and then get in close enough if he lands a pretty decent punch to get Perry off balance or disrupt his rhythm, and get in close, man, and take it to the ground. Once on the ground, I don't even have to tell you. It's just one of those books, you know what I'm saying, that you're going to have to crack open and say, well, both of them are pretty decent, well-rounded fighters. But when you take away a fighter from their most explosive position, which is standing, and put them on their back, the levels change so much. The levels just change dramatically. And I always go back to Cowboy Cerrone being able to sub Mike Perry out and what Mike Perry has been going through. So I'm saying to myself, has Mike Perry improved his ground game since? Because Mickey Gall is definitely going to try to take him down. But a part of me saying Perry still has enough to defeat Gall. That's just me. I still believe Mike Perry has enough to defeat Mickey Gall. And so I'm going for Mike Perry. I really hope he gets this victory. I know he has a lot of things going on in his life, but I can understand where the man is coming from a little bit. You know, sometimes you just want to just peel back those exterior layers of people that may be affecting you, you know, in your life, and just operate solo. You know, just kind of gather your thoughts and everything. So I'm going for Mike Perry in the co-main event. And of course, this fight, Mike Perry, the fight is going to be contended in the welterweight division. The welterweight division is 170 pounds. And, you know, it's one of the hotter divisions right now. We just have to get the right people in the ranking system. Next, Dustin Poirier, aka Dustin Diamond Poirier, is going in there against Dan Hangman Hooker. So let me pull up their record right quick. So Dan Hooker, the Hangman, he's 30 years old, y'all. And he's 20-8. So once again, I always tell people, the boxing fans and everything, MMA is much different than boxing, because when you look at these high number of losses on there, it depends on what organizations they was competing in before they made it over to the UFC. And sometimes it's when they got to the UFC, they had some losses and accumulated or compiled losses on top of the ones they had before they entered the organization. But it's not frowned upon as much as it is in boxing. So let's go to some names that stands out. Yair Rodriguez, Jason Knight, which went over to bare knuckle fight. He had that unbelievable scrap with Artem Lobov. And that was at a lower weight class for Dan Hooker, which was featherweight. And for what he said, that was just an apprentice. That was just an apprentice division for him to learn. Now he's competing at lightweight, 155. Next, the fight that a lot of us remember, especially me, and I was just curious on how he was going to handle Edson Barbosa. He lost round 3 via body punch. And anyone who follows the sport of mixed martial arts know Edson Barbosa is one of the most unique, dynamic switch kick, spinning technique when it comes to his kicks. He's one of the best in the game. He's one of the best you will find in the game. He was able to go in there and defeat Dan Hooker, okay? And I'm pretty sure Dan Hooker learned from that. It was just in 2019. I'm pretty sure Dan Hooker learned a lot from that shit. But he would go on after that to face James Vick. I can't put too much Wall Street in James Vick because he was getting put out by a lot of fighters. Found out that his chin wasn't there. Neurologically, something is going on up here where he keeps being knocked out. You know what I'm saying? You know, Justin Gaethje knocked him out. James Vick knocked him. I mean, not James Vick. Dan Hooker knocked him out. Something's wrong. And then Alaquinta went to a decision with Dan Hooker in 2019. And, you know, we're talking about tough Alaquinta, you know, went in a last-minute replacement against Khabib Nurmagomedov and went the distance with him too. So Alaquinta is a very tough individual. He just cannot be tough enough or perform at a higher level to get a belt. I'm not saying Alaquinta is a gatekeeper, but I'm just saying he doesn't have enough. It seemed like he has enough skill, right? He goes the distance with a lot of tough fighters. It just seemed like he doesn't have the game plan, so to speak, to get these wins in the big fights. And then, of course, Paul Felder and Dan Hooker. This fight right here, man, was unbelievable. I couldn't believe that these two went back and forth the way they did. Dan Hooker won a split decision. Some people thought Paul Felder won. Paul Felder is one of my favorite fighters, believe it or not. I like how he has developed his skill set. He kind of had that Cowboy Cerrone, that Muay Thai rhythm to him, and then he stopped that and just kind of started building up his own rhythm. Yeah, him and Dan Hooker had a very tough fight. And I was surprised that Felder lost that. But what it did was send Dan Hooker into the position that he's in right now. And this way it gets very interesting. All right. Dan Hooker beats Paul Felder. And, you know, we go into COVID-19 and everything. And this fight was February 22nd on the same night that Deontay Wilder was in there with Tyson Fury at the MGM Grand, right? So he gets that fight. We go into COVID-19 lockdown. So now, you know, the cylinders are spinning back up. We're moving forward in both boxing and mixed martial arts. And he gets the call with a pretty decent training camp. You know, pretty decent training camp. Dan Hooker said he never allowed himself to become deconditioned. He always wanted to be ready if he got the phone call. He know he's at the top of the ranking system. He know it was only a matter of time before he get the call, and he's trying to get that title shot in the lightweight division. He really wants that title shot. Well, guess what? He's in there with Dustin Poirier. Let me tell you a little bit about Dustin Poirier. He's fought some big names, y'all. He's fought Max Holloway twice. And we're going to get on the one that most recently before he stepped in there with Khabib Nurmagomedov. So let's look at Dustin Poirier. His record is 25-6. But check out who he lost to, though. Danny Castillo, Chung Sung Jung, Cub Swanson, who's another one of my favorite fighters. Tough dude, man. I wish I could interview Cub Swanson. I like Cub, man. And then, of course, Conor McGregor. I still remember that day. I just couldn't remember. I mean, I just couldn't think to myself, how could Conor dominate Dustin Poirier the way he did? But then I thought to myself, Dustin is still developing his game. You know what I'm saying? He's still evolving. He's not there yet. And to see him go in there and just get blitzed in round one, what is that telling you? Some of Dustin Poirier's losses has been really, I mean, I'm talking about absolutely dominating stoppages, early closes. He lost to Conor McGregor in 2014. Then he goes in here, you know, with Michael Johnson and gets stopped in round one again. And we all know Michael Johnson is very good with his hands. He was having success when he was in there with Khabib. You know what I'm saying? He's one of the last people to, he was one of the last people before Justin Gaethje put them hands on Tony Ferguson. But he was the one that defeated Tony Ferguson back in 2012. Like, Michael Johnson was coming along great, man. We just don't know what happened. But yeah, Dustin Poirier lost in 2016 to Michael Johnson via punches. Then, you know, he fought the veteran Jim Miller, who just had a very solid win, man. He went in there and defeated a prospect that a lot of people had high hopes in, man, Roosevelt. He went in there and subbed him out. Salute to Jim Miller. Hey, another one of my favorite fighters. So he had a no contest to Eddie Alvarez. We already know that was a very solid fight. And Eddie Alvarez, he couldn't continue. So he went on to fight Anthony Pettis, won that. Then he went ahead against Justin Gaethje. That fight he had with Justin Gaethje, in my opinion, was the turning point for Dustin. In my opinion, because his boxing was so solid. And then, you know, Justin, he has wrestling to his cachet, his repertoire, right? He barely even use it. So I was saying to myself, will he be able to try to, you know, take it to the ground with Justin Gaethje? And me knowing the highlight reel, Justin Gaethje, it didn't go that way. It was a mano, tit for tat, punch for punch. And these guys stood in the hole. And it was one of the most exciting fights, I thought. Real talk. I thought it could have been fight of the year. I mean, it was one of the most exciting fights you can watch. And it was a 5-rounder too. So he ended up stopping Justin Gaethje in round 4 in what many would call a fight to remember, and definitely one for the archives. Then he stepped in there with Eddie Alvarez again for a rematch, and he stopped him in round 2. So Dustin's on a roll, right? Now he's getting closer to something, a pinnacle in his career where he's always been one. Dustin Poirier has been working hard for this, like through the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, his losses, his wins, and everything, just trying to stay balanced, work it out in the gym. Dustin's a good dude, man. Every time he steps in there, I'm always pulling for Dustin. Always. I mean, I like who he is as a person, and I like his fighting style. His hands is to be respected. So he gets the call up that he's going to be facing Max Holloway for the interim belt. So I'm saying to myself, okay. Dustin Poirier, who's a true lightweight, 155er. And Max Holloway's coming up from featherweight, a 45er, right? So I'm saying, Max Bless Holloway is tough. He's a champion. He's trying to do something different. He comes up here and faces Dustin Poirier. And Dustin absolutely takes out every bit of freaking animosity. He goddamn pull out several wheelbarrows of cans of whoop ass on goddamn Max Holloway. He started off early because Max started his fight slow, and Dustin started off out the gate. Seriously, it was almost like, you was at the Kentucky Derby and you was tying your shoes in front of the horses, the gate of the horses, while you was making it. You was taking your time getting back to where you belong, and they popped the gate open. That's just, and all them horses came out and ran your ass over. That's basically what happened with Dustin, man. Dustin ran over Max Holloway, and Max showed how tough he really was, man. He couldn't put him out. He hit him with some crazy punches. I mean, solid punches with 4-ounce gloves. And it was just a massacre in there for a minute. I was like, damn, he's going to wash Max like this, and he's the featherweight champion? Max go back down his division, he may be different. He was putting the business in on Max Holloway like Max Holloway was putting in on Brian Ortega. He was really giving them the business. But Max, I'm telling you, Max is a tough dude, man. And he was blessed that night because he made it to a decision and he lost. Arguably so. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no way that he did anything to win that fight. But that was for the interim lightweight title. The winner of that fight would have definitely went in to face Khabib Nurmagomedov. So now he dispersed the Max Holloway, sent him back down to featherweight, and salute the Max. Much respect to him, man. Dustin Poirier finally gets the strap around his waist. Even though it's the interim belt, it's still something special to Dustin because he's been wanting to get this opportunity. So he finally get the fight with Khabib Nurmagomedov. And they fight September 2019, right? And this is what Dustin's been waiting for. He's able to land some punches on him. Like, yeah, Conor McGregor and Michael Johnson landed some punches too. But Dustin started off pretty decent because Khabib's boxing sucks. Seriously. But his wrestling game, his takedowns, his shoot are very lethal. Very, very dangerous. So at one point in the fight, man, Dustin was able to lock in the guillotine and he couldn't get the sub. He couldn't get Khabib to tap. I don't even think Khabib's body, when it does lose consciousness, I think Khabib's body will continue to function as normal in clone mode. Seriously. I think if his physical, his conscious state, that's basically numero uno, the default. If you choke him out, I believe he has another cloning reservoir that will open up and allow him to breathe off a second heart. Because I don't see Khabib tapping. I don't see Khabib going unconscious. You will have to have a high level, ground practitioner to choke Khabib out, because Dustin Poirier had him in a deep guillotine choke and he couldn't get the shit done. He could not get it done, y'all. And I know deep down inside, knowing how Dustin kind of deeply, have, I wouldn't say overthink things, but how certain things affect him emotionally. And I know once he wasn't able to get that sub of Khabib, which would have really changed the game, it would have catapulted Dustin Poirier's career into a whole nother freaking stratosphere in mixed martial arts. Really. Because Khabib Nurmagomedov is considered one of the GOATs. He's 28-0 right now. It would have absolutely gave Dustin Poirier his first championship, and he would have went on and fought somebody else if he didn't fight Khabib in the rematch. But as the record states, as fate would have it, Dustin Poirier was subbed out in the third frame. So what does this say about Dustin? Now he has to go back to the drawing board. He isn't off the pound for pound list, but he needs to take a couple of fights to get back in the championship conversation with Khabib Nurmagomedov. So this is what may happen. The good thing about this, people, is that Dustin Poirier is about to step in there with a very tough fight with Dan Hooker. In my opinion, I'm going for Dustin Poirier. I believe his boxing is much better. And this is where I think he would have the advantage due to the size of the cage. His jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, his ground game. Both fighters have pretty decent ground games. But I have to give the edge to Dustin Poirier with his hands and takedown defense. I would have to give him the edge, man. He may land some hard punches on Dan Hooker. And Dan Hooker's gotten in trouble before from being hit. So what Dan Hooker has said is that Dustin Poirier doesn't have that good of a chin. Dustin Poirier has kind of kept it real nice and clean. He really didn't respond. He said, you know what? It's good for him to think that. I want him to think that. Bring it to the fight and let's sell it from there. So that's what we're looking at, man. The one that has the higher takedown percentage is Dustin Poirier. But the one with the better the one with the better takedown percentage would be Dustin Poirier, but the one with the better takedown defense is definitely going to be Dan Hooker. So we'll see how that plays out with fatigue and everything else. And of course, this is going to be a 5-round fight. Poirier has been there before in some of the big fights. The positive aspect about it is he's been here before. So it's not going to be like, just because there's no crowd, Poirier is not going to be able to respond and get it done. I believe the momentum right now sits heavy in the corner of Dustin Poirier. Now for Dan Hooker, he says it's not going to be a problem. Cool. But I believe it is in a sense. I believe it is. And Dan Hooker's been on a tear, man. But Dustin Poirier is definitely going to be his toughest fight. And for him to go in there and say, he has a suspect chin, he's going to have to prove it. Definitely. Dan Hooker is going to have to prove it. I like both fighters, man, going in here. They're very competitive. They like to put on a show. And if it's anything like we've seen with Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, we're going to be in for entertainment. We're definitely going to be in for an entertaining main event tomorrow night. Definitely. So the winner of Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker, of course, will probably line themselves up for a bout with the winner of Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. Either way, that whole quadrant, Dan Hooker, Dustin Poirier, and then Justin Gaethje and Khabib Nurmagomedov, either one of those, whoever face who, is going to be good. It's going to be nice, period. You know, that fight. Justin Gaethje and Khabib Nurmagomedov will be down the line, but any one of these, Dan Hooker or Dustin Poirier win, it's a win-win situation because they're going in there and facing the man right now. But I got to go with Dustin Poirier. I like his boxing. I like his cardio. The experience, definitely. I have to really check the box on that. You know, he's been in the big fights before, especially with the world champion himself, Khabib Nurmagomedov. And though he was subbed out, he has the experience, and he was able to land on Khabib. So I have to give him an edge in that department. For Dan Hooker, he's just got to go ahead and show the world that he was prepared for this for the bright lights, no audience, and he's ready to shine. He's put that Essen Barbosa loss behind him, and he's ready to go ahead and show that he is a true contender. So we'll see how that works. So those are my two picks for the main event and the co-main event. I'm picking Dustin Poirier to defeat Dan Hooker. How? It really does me no good to tell you how, because I'm very bad with, you know, I'll take the ground game, I'll take the takedown defense and the freaking takedown percentage. And I look at how good they struck against this person, that person, and then the fight goes absolutely different than what I predicted it to be. So, and then, you know, Mike Perry, Mickey Gall, man, I truly believe Mike Perry, though he's just bringing this girl to corner him, as a fighter, you definitely have to go in there and make changes on your own. You have to adjust. And this is going to be one of those moments where we're going to get a clear understanding about Mike Perry's, you know, inner strength right now, his stability. We're going to really see, you know, where he's at. Is he riding on the hood of the car, or is he driving it? You know what I'm saying? We're going to really find out where he's at in his mental psyche right now. You know, I still think he has some type of control over his life, and, you know, certain dark sides and twists and turns that he may have went through, you know, divorcing his other wife that we saw him with her all the time when he was at the fights, to now a woman that he basically says is everything to him. She puts up with somebody like him. She's the only savage he knows. He said, you know, basically, you know, he put his everything in this chick. So I really want it to work out. I just don't want it to be like, what's his name? You know, a lot of these fighters that get with these females, and it turns into a very bad domestic case. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going for Mike Perry, man. You know, Mike Perry is a different type of dude. Tough. So I'll definitely see what's good with that. So go get that win, Mike. You know what I'm saying? I know you're going through a storm right now, man. I know you kind of just strolling around, you know, in your mental, you know, your mental carnival right now. Shit's all going fast for you. You know, a lot of things are just not adding up. But your girl is keeping you sane right now. So I really hope, without having any type of corner, you learn from your mistakes and you go in there and put on a good performance against Mickey Gall, because I truly believe Gall is going to put on the best performance of his career against Perry. I truly believe that. And that performance may indeed bring us to see him subbing out Mike Perry. It can happen, y'all. It can happen. I'm not saying Perry's ground game is hefty certified, okay? But what I'm saying is Mickey Gall has a solid freaking ground game, man. And it's going to be interesting. But my picks, Dustin Poirier and Mike Perry. Mo Game said, can we see the fight? Yeah, you can see the fight. From my understanding, it's going to be on ESPN, and it's coming on around 8 o'clock. Mo, check this out. Like I tell everybody, when you're streaming on these social media platforms, you cannot show the fight, or else they would shut you down. It's a copyright infringement on your channel. So the algorithms and everything else will quickly alert the UFC, boxing, Top Rank, whoever's putting on a card this night. If I basically share screen and show it to you all, I will get shut down. You're going to see the shit go blank and they're going to block it. Once they block it, you just wasted your time on the video. So to answer your question, no, I will not be showing the fight. And if you look around, nobody else shows the fight while streaming either. You know what I'm saying? No one else does. And I feel you. I get what you asking. But if it was like that, it would definitely be many more people tuned in to certain, to different channels and stuff like that. It would be good if we can pay a price to be able to stream. If the fight card is PPV, it would be great. If the fight card was PPV, we pay a little bit of money so we can stream it via our media outlets. It'll be cool, but that's not the case. Facebook will shut it down and YouTube will shut it down. And once YouTube is shut down, you can get strikes. You can get copyright strikes against your channel, and they can shut your channel down. So that's why we be providing live commentary, just talking. It's all good, man. So what else is good? We have some good fights coming back next month, and I'm very much looking forward to it, especially when it comes down to fighters that are in a matchup that's going to do them very well in their career. I always like the underdogs, so to speak. Next month, the welterweight division is having one of the biggest matches, you know what I'm saying, outside of Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. We have Kumar Huisman and Gilbert Burns that's contended in the welterweight division. Now, we all know Kumar Huisman won the belt from Tyron Woodley. We know he defended it against Kobe Covington. He won it, okay? He won it. He's not one of my favorite competitors to watch and root for because I don't know what Kumar Huisman is showing up. He's always in shape. The way he was just laying on Tyron Woodley and everything kind of reminded me of Johnny Hendricks back in the day. It reminded me of these wrestlers who just really don't care about the fans, but they just want the W. And in some people camps, they'll tell you, hey, get the W. Don't worry what the fuck the fans mean. Fuck all that. Now, Gilbert Burns is a whole nother type of freaking energy. Dude is a very elite BJJ practitioner, and we've had them come over. But, Robert Drysdale, he's one of the best, multi-time world BJJ champion, and he's been coaching. And I'm going to bring him up a little bit later about Max Roshkoff, right? We're going to talk about him. But, Drysdale, we had Damian Maia. We had BJ Penn. He was one of the youngest to earn his black belt. Of course, we had Horace Gracie and UFC 1, man. Of course. Horace Gracie, he wore gi back then. So it was beneficial for them to use that gi to sub their opponents, in which they did. But Gilbert Burns, though, 3-time ADCC, Gold Cup winner. Gilbert Burns is an elite freaking grappler. His brother Herbert is an elite grappler. If you see how they attack a submission and the speed for which they do it, it's very educational. It is absolutely a lethal transition on how they go about their submissions. But check this out. Gilbert Burns has been working on his boxing that he's shown with Tyron Woodley. He was able to go in there and drop Tyron Woodley. Who does that all the time? You know, besides Nate Marquardt, when he was in a neighboring organization, Strikeforce, he knocked out Tyrone Woodley bad with uppercuts. But we're talking about Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns knocked down Tyrone Woodley, ground and pound, and was able to mount him. I mean, dude's been working on his boxing. So now we look at the facet of wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. The takedown defense of Kumar Huisman versus a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. Not only that, people, check this out. Look at the elephant in the room when it comes to this shit. Burns and Kumar Huisman are pretty cordial teammates. They're teammates. They train the same gym. They're teammates. They have familiarization. That means they have sparred. They have locked up. They have went rounds. They understand what the other ones have. Yeah. That is going to be a very methodical offensive curriculum that both of these fighters are going to have to score A+ on. They're going to have to ace this test. Because sometimes when you know your opponents, the fight can either be very exciting or extremely boring. And for Kumar Huisman, he doesn't need a boring ass fight. Because the fans ain't gonna fuck with him. Dana White is gonna be like, like he's always saying, like, hey, I'm just not feeling this guy. I'm not saying Kumar Huisman is a bad guy. I'm not saying he doesn't have a good spirit. I'm just saying when it comes to selling tickets, everybody can't do it like Conor McGregor. But Gilbert Burns has this energy about him. He has this energy that he wants to go in there and deliver a dominant performance because he's been able to lift himself or elevate in such a short period of time. He went from his place on the ranking system, and when do you see him defeat the number one guy and you actually get moved into the number one slot? You know what I'm saying? How does that usually work? It usually, the second guy that was there moves up. But obviously people would say, if you're number 6 and you defeat the number one guy, you should go to number 1. I don't think so, really. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes the second ranked guy may be facing the 4th ranked guy and all that. And the number 1 ranked guy loses. So in actuality, the second ranked guy should move up to number 1. And the shift should happen about who won and lost. But in this particular case, right, Gilbert went to number 1 contender and he gets his title shot. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Gilbert Burns gets his title shot against his teammate, Kumar Huisman, in the welterweight division, 170. And I think the fight has potential to supersede the entertainment value of Colby Covington and Kumar Huisman. It does, y'all. But I'm a little bit apprehensive to put all my investment in Huisman because check this out. This is what I mean. After seeing Israel Adesanya fight Yoel Romero, who is supposed to be one of the most dangerous guys, he lost to Robert Whittaker twice, right? He should have lost to Tim Kennedy. But check this out, though. Adesanya played it very, very safe and made it one of the most boringest fights in UFC history just to keep his belt, right? He didn't want to take no risk. And I'm curious in this fight with Gilbert Burns, it's not like Gilbert Burns is going to be towering over Kumar Huisman. That's not the case. But I'm wondering if Huisman is going to very much play it extremely safe just so he can get his second defense. And also with Gilbert Burns being a teammate, I'm just trying to think and put it in, will they come out and try to kill each other? That's all I'm saying. Will they come out and try to kill each other? Will we get Clay Guida and Diego Sanchez? Will we get Joe Daddy Stevenson and BJ Penn? Can we get that? Can we get that type of energy? Can we even get Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley, even though he finished him in the first round? Youssef, Zalal, to be honest with you, I don't know a lot about the guy. You know, that's who I'm gonna do research on tomorrow. You know, some of these guys is deep on the undercards, but I don't know too much about them. To be honest, I don't. So to Gilbert Burns, man, you know, who has very solid boxing right now. He's demonstrated that about he's demonstrated when he stepped in there with Tyron Woodley. And you know, he has this huge package. He has this case, this BJJ case. You know, the one that has the chain coming off the handle and it locks in around your arm. He always has that in weight. The dude is competed. He has competed on the highest level. So that's in the case. What's going to have to be on display early is his boxing, is his takedown defense. That's going to have to be on display early. And you know what? If this fight goes any way that it did, like Colby Covington and Kumar Huisman, and they just stand there and trade, it's going to be interesting, y'all. It's going to be very interesting. Because the last time I checked, you know, Gilbert Burns put on a pretty decent pace. But then again, I look at Usman. Usman doesn't get tired like that, in my opinion. He was able to land some solid punches on Colby Covington, break his jaw. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people wanted to see that happen. But this is going to be a good, solid step up, welterweight affair for Gilbert Burns. And I will stick to what I've said in the past about Kumar Usman. I haven't been one to co-sign on him as a champion. When a lot of people was talking shit about Tyron Woodley, I'm like telling them he stepped in there with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson twice. One was a draw and one was a decision, period. He won. And to get the title, he smashed Robbie Lawler in one round, okay? Then he goes in here and face who? Damian Maia, BJJ world champion. He negates like 20-plus takedown attempts and ended up tearing his labrum, and he was out of the sport for quite some time. Okay, came back, fought a bigger Darren Till, someone who's fighting in middleweight right now, 185, who damn near freaking died cutting weight at one point in time for welterweight. He goes in there and crushes Darren Till in 2 rounds. He crushes Darren Till in 2 rounds. So he had a pretty decent run at welterweight. Now Kumar Usman, in my opinion, a lot of people are going to look at him and say, damn, we thought Tyron Woodley was, you know, a little bit off our popularity list. We don't know what to say about Kumar Usman. Yeah, he had a pretty decent fight against Colby Covington, but so did Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley had some pretty solid fights in his career with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. You know what I'm saying? He had him in a deep guillotine, couldn't finish him. When he sat up there and negated 20-plus takedowns from Damian Maia, what people say? Oh, man, you should have grappled. Why? Damian Maia's name, a.k.a. the backpack, for a fucking reason. He separates your conscious. Your brain needs how much? What's the percentage of oxygen your brain need? Enough to stay coherent and competent? That's Damian Maia, a.k.a. the backpack. Why would you want to go in his domain and get fucked up? And people laugh at you like, oh, Damian Maia sub you out. You know what? You knew you shouldn't have been on the ground with him to begin with. Why did you let that shit happen? But I'm going for Gilbert Burns, just to answer your question. And that's something I'm going to touch bases on a little bit more next month. Now, to Mr. Drysdale, a lot has been going on, and this is going to piss some people off, okay? A lot has been going on about Max Roshkoff, right? And people was kind of dropping shit on my inbox, you know, kind of asking me what I thought. And of course, me being the person I am, like, it's a lot of stuff that I can sustain that some people may say, okay, well, that's a little bit too much. That's overboard. But for me, from what I've seen and been through physically and stuff like that, I didn't think Max Roshkoff, right? Him saying he wanted to quit. I agree with a lot of fighters who were saying that his coach knew him better than anything. Mr. Drysdale knew his fighter. This is the fighter who he allowed to stay in his house when he didn't have no other place to go. He's been around this kid for the longest of time. And for what he was trying to say off the interviews was basically, I know Max. And sometimes he gets in these moments and these pockets where he needs extra motivation to keep going. And he felt that was a moment where he needed to push Max to get back out there for that last round, because it wasn't like Max didn't win the first round. Like, he did pretty decent. And then the second round, he took some punishment. And you know, it was like, I don't want to be here. And his coach, you know, Mr. Drysdale, was like trying to basically motivate him. Even Daniel Cormier said he didn't quite agree with the narrative that was being pushed around about it. It was showing a lack of concern for the fighters' well-being or welfare to have him go back out there and fight. And Ariel Helwani, you know, I hit him on Twitter. He didn't respond to me, but I was like, listen, Ariel Helwani, as much as I respect him, right? You are not a therapist. Ariel's not a life coach. Man, you cannot keep pitching the same sympathy choir to everyone that you interview, and you want to get enough feedback to just persuade them a little bit that, hey, Drysdale was absolutely out of pocket and he was wrong as a coach. He's one of the best American BJJ competitors ever, and he went undefeated as a mixed martial artist, right? But you have Ariel out here just pushing this narrative, man, and trying to make it seem like Drysdale was the worst person ever. And I'm saying to myself, Ariel, man, you're not a therapist. You're not a life coach. You're not a counselor. You're doing too much. So all these fighters, I'm listening to the interviews, and all these people he's interviewing, they say, did you hear about Max Roshkoff? And what do you think about that? Well, let me tell you what I think. You know, when he gets his falsetto, you know, that falsetto. I'm going to tell you what I think about that. I think it was a bit overboard, because him being the coach, Max said he wanted to stop 9 times, and Coach Drysdale didn't take any type of consideration. And I'm saying to myself, we know it was 9 times. And Coach Drysdale said, you know what? I would have kept on motivating him. If I had, 15 more minutes or whatever, I would have kept on motivating him to get out there, because I know who he is. I've been around this kid for a long time. Sometimes he just need an extra push. And I was surprised he even got on there and talked with Ariel Helwani. But Drysdale kept it professional. Helwani kept bringing up the 9 times. Okay, he said he wanted to go out 9 times. Okay, we get it. But this dude wasn't bleeding like that. He wasn't looking like Badu Jack. He wasn't looking like Clay Guida. He wasn't looking like Diego Sanchez, Joe Daddy Stevenson, when BJ had him in the rear naked choke and blood was squirting up like a fountain out of his head. He wasn't looking like Nate Diaz. He was just in a mental state that he felt that he didn't want to go out there again. You know what I'm saying? But I don't approve of Ariel just seemingly, he has mad knowledge. He's been in the sport of reporting for quite some time, but I just didn't appreciate him pushing this life coach type of deal off on everybody. And then when they told him and gave and provided their feedback, and it really wasn't centered to basically co-sign or confirm what Ariel was talking about, he turned out, well, look at it this way. What do you think the UFC will do about that? Do you think the commissioner have something to do with a fighter saying something 9 times and the coach not taking them out to fight? I don't approve of that, because it just seems like that over here in MMA and the UFC, they seem like it's against this code for them to throw in the towel and stop a fight. So he has a problem with now seeing the Raquel Pennington fight. They didn't throw in the towel. Seeing the Glover Teixeira and Anthony Smith fight, they didn't throw in the towel. And then in this particular fight, Drysdale is told by his fighter, who he's been coaching for quite some time, which the fighter had initially came to him to coach when he didn't have anything. I want you to coach me. And he took him in, and Max had so much respect for his coach. And he said, you know what? I can be a hard head sometime. I can be a hard head sometime. I can put myself in places like that. He was pretty much, he wasn't going against the grain of what his coach did. But for Max, it's more so inside of here that was affecting him. And though it looked bad and people was paying attention to how many times that he told his coach that he didn't want to go back out there, sometimes that's not a no. Sometimes that's just like, well, let me say, I'm feeling a certain way. I don't want to get back out there. And then you have your corner there to boost you up. So don't you quit. You got it. You can go back out there. And for some fighters, that is the extra fuel they need to get back out there and perform. Especially if it's a close fight in a 3-rounder and it's 1-1. Hell yeah, your team wants you to go out there and answer questions. They want you to answer those questions. And here, they want to answer the questions. You're in the fight game. If you get put in this particular dilemma, again, how are you going to handle it? If you quit in the heat of battle right now, what's going to happen the next time you're in the heat of battle? I have a different perspective, y'all. I just have a different perspective when it comes to, pain and stuff like that. It's just, I just have a different tolerance. And this ain't about me, but I'm just saying, following combat sports as long as I have, seeing combat sports overseas, I just know the human body when it comes to combat sports. I've seen some rough situations. And I've seen some situations with kids all the way up to the youths. And also I've seen the adults. Because overseas, I'm telling you, you get to go to some of these places like Taiwan, Thailand, Philippines, Korea. I was able to go to South Korea and see them do body hardening. I was able to see the QRT team, the quick reaction team. They're like a special team that's supposed to get ready in a matter of under 10 seconds. Everything on, out, and ready. And I seen, them doing body hardening, no pads on, no nothing. Bone to bone, shin to shin, knuckles to the chest. I guess I'm a little bit numb and desensitized, man, when it comes to what's really tough and what I've seen inside the cage and what I've seen in boxing. Some people may frown upon it, but I'm not going in here and saying, well, I'm about to be a coach tomorrow, because I'll make a bad coach. I'm not gonna lie. I will make an absolute bad coach. Seriously. But when I'm observing combat sports and boxing in general, it's just certain fights I've seen people just go through the bottom side. I don't want to call it hell because no one knows if hell isn't exactly where we at right now. No one knows that. I don't care how many churches you go to. I don't believe it's a hell. I believe hell is basically where we at right now on earth. But anyway, if they go to the darkest place in their mental thought process, their mental psyche, and the mind is one of the darkest places you can go. Hands down, period. Your mind is the darkest place that you can roam around and go to places that can absolutely fuck your life up. It is. It's nothing more stronger than that right there. Once that starts to go, it's tough. It's beyond tough, man. And a fighter, being in combat sports, that's why I respect it so much. You can get fighters that don't even have high school educations. Some of these fighters may not know how to read back in the day, or whatever the case, right? You can take a fighter and they go split the ropes or go into the cage and fight, and they're able to process. They're able to process a plan to execute, and they understand what is the cognizant end state to go out here and defeat their opponent. They're not just going to go up here and put their hand up and slap them one time and they're going to go down. They have to come up with remediated plans on their offensive strategy and tactics to go out here and somehow earn a So that's what I'm looking at. It's just an amazing sport. You know, you go on mano and mano, one-on-one, and you definitely have to go in there with an opponent that's never going to be the same. You know, combat sports don't have a template. Everybody's different. Everybody's so-called competitive level maxes out differently. I don't believe in primes. I know a lot of people say prime. There's no such thing as primes. You know why? Because no one's going to tell me Manny Pacquiao, just because he has a WBA super title, is in his prime. Okay? You're not going to tell me that. Manny Pacquiao has just been able to do a lot of things. But when a fighter is winning and they're at a certain age where some people may believe they should be losing, then they'll be quick to say, oh, so-and-so's in his prime. I don't believe in that. I just believe when you're peaking competitively and you're at a point in your age where you're supposed to be your most strongest, then that's where you at. You at your most strongest competitive state, and that's what you're competing at right now. Everybody prime. What is a prime? Is it physical maturation, or is it mental comprehension? What does the prime consist of? When you say somebody's in their prime, their comprehension of the sport or their physical being? Because sometimes the two really don't match up. Somebody can be physically this way and ready to go in there and they look good, but they keep losing. But really, they look very well, but they keep losing. And then all of a sudden, the thought process starts to mold together and they start to bond and they actually start learning what the fuck they're supposed to do in this particular situation. And they start putting that shit together and the tandem start working, teamwork, and the fighter starts to get in here and look special and ends up going win the world championship. I mean, that's the way I think about it. But that's gonna be a good fight, man. It's tough. It's tough to who I want to, you know, go for. But like I said before, I just never been a Kumar Huisman fan. I'm going for Gilbert Burns, and he's at a point in his career right now. having competed at the highest layer of BJJ, if he's able to come in here and get this welterweight championship, it'll be nice, man. It'll be definitely an achievement in his career, you know, that's going to put him on another level. And he can say, I've competed outside at the world stage in BJJ at the highest level. And now I'm a champion over here in the UFC, which is considered the highest pinnacle of mixed martial arts. That'd be great. And then, of course, you know, be on the watch out for Herbert. Herbert Burns is fighting in the featherweight division. Speaks like a professor of the game. Very, very intelligent dude. So be on the lookout for him too. Next, a fight that I'm looking forward to. Max Bless Holloway is facing Alexander Volkanovski in a rematch. Volkanovski took the title. This is going to be a tough fight for Max. And I don't want to say this is going to be one, if he loses bad, he's going to be out the sport for quite some time. But I believe that if Max want to stay relevant, because he haven't been, look, Max haven't been pushed or demanded to climb down that ladder yet. He's been at the top. So now, you know, Dana say, you know what? You had enough defenses of your title so that you lost. We will grant you another rematch. They just didn't throw him away like they did Tyrone Woodley. You seen Tyrone Woodley get a rematch? Hell no. You think he's going to get a rematch after losing to Gilbert Burns? Hell no. It's not going to happen. It ain't going to happen. Did you see them give Jose Aldo a rematch with Conor McGregor after he was knocked out in 13 seconds? Hell no. No, 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 no. Are you seeing Stipe Miocic get a rematch with Daniel Cormier heavyweight? Yes, because they 1-1. Both fights were exciting, and it's only right. Why? Because DC is one of the best outside of John Jones ever to do it in the sport. Ever. So DC wants that rematch with Stipe instead of John Jones. He's going to get it. He's going to get it. But a part of me is saying Alexander Volkanovski in the featherweight division. A part of me saying he may keep the title, man. I like Max, man. I really do. I like Max, but I just think Alexander Volkanovski is going to be very competitive to retain his title. And then the one that makes more sense to me, and then on top of that, if Volkanovski retains his featherweight title, we may see something that's never been on the stage of the UFC, period. If by chance Dana White agrees to it, we may see Henry Cejudo, the previous gold medal Olympian in wrestling, return back from a short retirement to face Alexander Volkanovski at the featherweight division. He's made it perfectly clear, Mr. Cringeworthy himself, Triple C, bend the knee, that he wants to be the greatest. So he's made it clear that he want to come back and fight at the featherweight division and for the title. So if Henry Cejudo, who's on a tear right now, he would have basically won the flyweight title, the bantamweight title, and the featherweight title. That's the 125-pound division, 35-pound division, and 45-pound division. He would have been the first to win titles in 3 divisions. And we'll see if it happens. But anyway, down to the next fight. For the vacant title, Jose Aldo, man. One of the legends when he was up there at featherweight. He came over here champion from the WEC to the UFC. And I'm surprised to see Jose Aldo drop down to 135. He looked pretty decent against Marlon Moraes, but I'm like, what's going on in Jose's head? He's getting older, and then he's having these weight cuts. And so far, it's been healthy, man, but I just don't know how long he's going to be able to do it, right? He's going in there for a bantamweight title. Remind me of Rigondeaux just now. You know, Rigondeaux came down in boxing, 118, fought for a title and got it done. So Jose Aldo is going in there against a 27-year-old Peter Yan. And Peter's, he has the momentum right now. Jose has the experience. A lot of what Jose has in his cachet, I can say, it's good enough to beat Yan right now. But then I look at his 2 losses to freaking Max. I mean, he just has some losses that I just shake my head. I'm like, damn. This is hard to call. As much as I want to go with who I grew up with, I'm going with Jose Aldo, man. Fuck it. I'm going with Jose Aldo for the 135-pound division. I've been wrong before, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going with Jose Aldo for the bantamweight title, the vacant bantamweight title right now, 135. I want Jose Aldo to win that. It'll be good. Seriously, it'll be good. Because Jose Aldo is a legend of the sport. I respect the shit out of him, man. Seeing his fights, I hope he really apply his leg kicks this time to Peter Yan, just like we seen Dominique Reyes do to John Jones during their match. Who else has been just like we seen Justin Gaethje? Justin Gaethje has very lethal leg kicks, low calf kicks. I really hope, Jose Aldo go back to the game plan and utilize those leg kicks and take away that lead leg so he won't put weight on it. And then, of course, if you fuck it up real good, you pretty much soften them up for the takedown. So let's see if it happens, man. I'm going for Jose Aldo. Yeah, I'm going for Thug Rose Namajunas, man. She was basically giving Jessica Andrade some very solid work early. She's a very underrated striker with her boxing. I love how she mixed her hands up with her kicks, and then her jiu-jitsu game has been on note. You know what I'm saying? On point. She has subbed out some pretty decent names. She subbed out Michelle Waterson and some other fighters. She wasn't able to sub out Joanna Jędrzejczyk because she knocked her out. But I'm really going for my girl Thug Rose, man. I really think she can make a run back for the title. Seriously. I seriously think Thug Rose will be a pretty decent matchup for Weili Zhang because she's not going to fight Weili Zhang like Jessica Andrade. She's not going to do it. She's a smarter fighter. Jessica Andrade was thinking that she was, Mike Tyson or something. Like, this ain't boxing. You just can't go in there and think you're going to freaking overpower these Chinese fighters, Russians. They build a lot of what they do is all about power. So she didn't get a perfect, she couldn't even defend her title once before she was stopped by Weili Zhang in the first round. So I think if Thug Rose is able to go in here and defeat Jessica Andrade, she's going to be right back in the title picture. And that's what we want to see. We don't want to see Thug Rose face Joanna Jędrzejczyk for a trilogy. Nah. Thug Rose win this fight, we want to see her fight Weili Zhang. Period. That's what we want to see. What's up, man? What's awesome? What's good? Salute. Thanks for dropping in. And those of you who dropped in through the live chat, I totally appreciate it. This has been a muddy flat affair for mixed martial arts. And I will be back on tomorrow to kick it once more and talk about this card with Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier. It's going to be a nice fight. That's all I can say. It's going to be the lightweight division, 55. And then the co-main event is going to be Mike Perry and Mickey Gall. and that's going to be at 70. And that's going to that might be the most. I don't know. It's hard for me to say that's going to be the most intense fight of the night. It's going to be the most entertaining. But everything Mike Perry does, man, he does with male intentions. You know, he comes in full blown chaos and destruction. That's who he is as a person. So for him to come over there with just his girl in his corner, he knows what he wants, and let's see how it fares for him and see what adjustments he's able to make in a 3-round fight. Let's get it. That's all I say. Let's get it. Besides that, that's all I got, people. It's a short one tonight, but I'll be back on tomorrow. And everyone who stopped through, of course, salute and thank you very much. If you want to support the channel, make any donations, do it in the live chat. And you know, I didn't put my cash up tonight, but anyway, support the channel, subscribe to it, share the content. It's all good. This is UFC Fight Night preview. Poirier versus Hooker. Co-main event tomorrow. Mike Perry versus Mickey Gall. And it's always about boxing and MMA. Turn up and tune in to World Combat Sports.